Hi, this is Randy Wimmer with Government Contracting Academy, and today we're going to discuss how to launch a federal government contracting company. And we're not going to be talking about a business plan. We're going to talk about a business strategy. And why is a business strategy so important? Well, because business plans don't work. The reasons why business plans don't work is because they're written before you know anything. Well, this Dunning-Kruger curve explains entrepreneurship to a T and why business plans do not work. Here, I'm going to explain this real quickly. Once you're learning a little bit about a market, you get really excited and your confidence goes from really low to really high. You're saying like, wow, what's not to love about the federal government contracting industry? They've got a small business set-aside program. They've got trillion-dollar budgets. Less than 5% of U.S. companies pursue federal government contracts. It's got it going on, And you say, that's it. I'm going to launch a company in the federal government contracting industry. Woohoo! Well, you're about where that star is at that point, and you write a business plan, and then you learn a little bit more, and now you're at the peak of Mount Stupid. You're more stupid now than you've ever been. But what I'm trying to say there is that you've learned enough only to see the positives. And then you start to think like, how am I going to get market penetration? How am I going to get subcontracts? How am I going to write a winning proposal? Hell, how am I going to price it? I got to do a cost workup. How do I get DCAA cost accounting system, auditable? How do I do this? How do I do that? And at that point you realize like, oh my gosh, the devil was in the details. And then you fall into the valley of despair. Now, in order to get out of that, your business plan is not going to help you. You need a business strategy. You need a framework, a business model that's iterative in nature where you can go back and reapply your new knowledge base and continuously apply what you've learned to your strategy. If you do not have a business framework or a business model to get you through the valley of despair, you're going to be unsuccessful. I launched my very first company twice without using a business model. My third time around, I got desperate. I'm thinking like, oh my gosh, I've got to be successful, because at that point I had no money coming in and I was really at the end of my rope. So I used a business model that I had used quite a bit when I was in the Navy, and I had modified, repurposed, remodified, repurposed, and so on. And I took that framework and applied it to launching a company. It's called the Daddy Framework. And afterwards, man, every single thing that I touched turned to gold. I had success, in these companies, these federal government contracting companies. But it wasn't just effective in the federal government contracting arena. I applied it to our family-owned and operated nonprofit organization. We crushed it, man. We ended up receiving the President George H.W. Bush Points of Light Award for it. Remain Prepared. I launched that. With a 12-year-old kid, and we literally had thousands of Boy Scouts and Cub Scouts using that application to study for advancement and stay in scouting. Same way with EcoCierge. If you've read my book, you understand that it was highly effective launching EcoCierge. So what does DADDY stand for? Of course, it's an acronym. It stands for Dream, Analyze, Define, Develop, Execute, and Evaluate. So let's look at each one of these phases. The very first thing you got to do is you got to dream. You got to have a purpose to even do the DADDY framework. So, and I tell people, dream big. Dream big. But after you dream, you got to convert those into goals and objectives. Something that you could actually pursue and accomplish. You can't say, oh, I want to be financially secure. Well, what does that mean? You got to put some numbers to it. Your next phase is your analysis phase. You have to do a 4-perspective analysis. That means there's 4 different areas that you got to do a deep dive in. The first one is your personal goals. The second one is your market demand. Then your competition and your capabilities. Now, everybody focuses on capabilities, saying like, well, what can I really do? It has nothing about what you can do. It's about what your asset can do that you're creating. It's about your company, what it can do. It's not about you. It's about your asset. And your asset can do lots of different things through business relationships, through hiring different employees and so on. Now, what you're really doing here in the define phase is you're defining your company. what it's going to do, what it's going to look like. And the way you determine what your company is going to do and be is you find the intersection of those four perspectives. So now you got to translate that into honest to goodness services. So you find the intersection. Well, let's put some reality to this. What does that mean? That means, well, what are you going to do? What's going to be your horizontal markets or your services? Now, once you kind of figure out what that is, for example, if you've got a $20 million personal goal that you want to accomplish, having $20 million in an investment portfolio in 8 years or 9 years, you're not going to get there by doing janitorial services. You're just not. You need to have service offerings that are going to be attractive for an acquisition. And not too many people are buying janitorial services company. So, or if they are, the probability of is much greater for an IT company or a cybersecurity company or a logistics company or a healthcare company than it is a janitorial service one. Same way with your vertical markets. Not too many people are going to be interested in a company that's focused on the Department of Interior. They're going to be more interested in Department of Defense, Homeland Security, Health and Human Services, the second largest budget, and the Intel community. The intersection of those are what's called accounts. An account is simply no more than selling a specific service to a specific customer. So now you know what your company is going to do. And B, you're going to be a company that focuses on selling these things to these customers. So your next thing is you got to develop a plan to execute. So you've already developed a business strategy. You need to become legal. And the reason why I tell people to do that after you have a business strategy is because your name should reflect your service offerings or your market space. You just can't come up with a willy-nilly name and then figure out what it is that you're going to do with that name. Next thing you need to do is you need to create some sort of corporate credentials or discriminators, differentiators. When your company's resume is completely blank, it's just like high schoolers, man. If they want to become a doctor, guess what they're doing? They're going to college and for pre-med, and then they're going to medical school. They're getting credentials in order to be able to get jobs as doctors and lawyers and engineers and so on. Then you got to look legit. You got to have a website that looks like every other $500 million a year company. Why a $500 million? Because they're not developing their website any differently than yours. It should look that professional. And then this is the key. You have to do massive outreach. You've got to let tens of thousands of people know about your corporate credentials and about why you're special. Now, this is what your execution look like. Now, you've got to become a sexy company. That's phase one. You got to immediately, create a storefront. That's the second phase. Now, this can be done concurrently. Becoming a second company, getting your corporate credentials and getting a really sterling website. And then once you have that, then you let God and country know. And there's a ton of different ways that you can do massive outreach. There really is. And then your evaluation. Wherever you get market penetration, and again, you're going to be very, very, very liberal of what you accept. You just want to have some type of market penetration. For example, if you want to become a cybersecurity company, hey, take help desk. Help desk is good enough because I'm sure something's going to be flying across that help desk that you could spin to make it sound like it was more cybersecurity related. And then you kind of evaluate where you landed and you prosper where you're planted. That's what I did. Somehow or another, I landed in the logistics community with my very first prime contract, and I prospered where I was planted. Never served a single day in the logistics community. I could barely even spell logistics. That's not a joke. And yet here I am, I'm a logistics company. If you'd like to learn more about this, I talk about this quite a bit in governmentcontractingacademy.com, dcacampus.com, randall.wimmer.com is my author's website where you can learn more about good enough to launch your company. And you can also contact me at randall.wimmer@governmentcontractingacademy.com. Thank you so much.